you're printing money out of thin air, you're like a central bank, and then most central banks fuck up. So why wouldn't you?
Can you imagine equity investors, holders of stock receiving an airdrop? That would be hilarious.
That would be unprecedented. This is just my hopium. This is like my ultra bull case, like where my soul leaves my body, right? Every VC has a mandate to deploy capital. So if I raise $1 billion as a VC, I can't just take a management fee on it if I don't deploy that capital. So I have to. If you're buying something in Fortnite, I mean, ideally you can own it. That's awesome. But I don't believe in the aspect of creating a non-circular economy where you require new people to come in to keep the flywheel going. I think circular economies are what makes good games great. It forces you to think about building something that people genuinely want to use if you remove the incentives one day. Given we offer like Forex and metals and not just crypto assets, we've actually become the largest perp dex for real world assets.
Hey, Sohail here. Thanks for tuning in. Real quick before we begin, if you enjoyed this episode, if you learned something, please consider to follow or subscribe or share this episode. That helps us out a lot. It helps us to reach more people and to spread quality education across the space about crypto and Web3. Also, if you're part of a crypto project or represent one and you would like to come on the show or do sponsoring, please get in touch with us. And lastly, everything we talk about today is for educational purposes and no financial advice. Enjoy the show. All right, thank you for tuning into another episode of the Teach Me DeFi podcast. And today we're going to talk about a particular ecosystem. We're going to talk about Base, the layer 2 on Ethereum. We're going to dive into the ecosystem, what makes it special, why there's been so much buzz around it lately, interesting user experience things that are getting built with smart wallets and things like that. And also what you as a viewer could check out on Base, and have a look yourself, have a play around. And of course we'll talk about Avantis as well, because we got Sehaj on here, the founder. Hi mate.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sohail. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you on the show. I mean, yeah, it's I'm glad we got connected, and I'm glad to dive into this. Perhaps I know your background story is really interesting. It was to me. I think I checked out your bio, and there were a couple of names that stuck out. So yeah, what's your story? How did you end up building in crypto? And yeah, what's your background?
Yeah, how did I end up in this mess is the real question. So I graduated college. I went to Berkeley, graduated from undergrad there in 2020. And then I went the traditional route. I was always interested in just like working in investing and finance in general, right? So got into investment banking, doing mergers and acquisitions at Lazard. So imagine Google acquires a company, like we're advising Google on what they should pay for the company. So cool stuff, but also very boring and long hours. And I could not trade anything for the life of me. They would not allow me to trade any stocks, anything at all. And I wanted to trade my personal portfolio. So I got into crypto because of the simple reason that that's the only thing I could trade in 2021. So bought Ethereum at the peak hype at like $4,500 and went all in. At the time, I was fully convicted, mostly because of price action, not because I genuinely studied up on what Ethereum is and DeFi, right?
Yeah.
So thought it'll go up forever, and it came down crashing, right? Shortly after the bull run of 2021, and then got a reality check that like if I'm so invested deeply in the space, like I should be invested mentally as well, intellectually as well. So started spending like 2 hours every day, like late at nights after my banking job would end, learning up on DeFi, and then started like hitting up different founders. And the founders at Illuvium gave me a chance to work with them. So left my banking job immediately, started traveling the world, started working at Illuvium as a game economist, which is a pretty cool role. You pretty much design how each NFT is priced and sold in the game so that the game is sustainable, right? Turns out play to earn is not sustainable in general, but at the time we were trying to figure out how to make it work, right? Which is a very interesting problem to work on. Shortly after that, the incredible team at Pantera Capital, which is a US-based VC and crypto liquid fund, they reached out. They're OGs in the space. I was really excited that they reached out. They wanted me to work with them as an associate on the investment team. So joined as an investor and had a really cool experience. Worked there for a year and a half and really saw DeFi grow in that time with a lot of novel innovations across perpetuals, derivatives, lending protocols, the emergence of new L2s. And that really enamored me and inspired me to become a founder myself. And because I realized that the only way to dive even deeper in the rabbit hole is like build something with my own hands. So that's what led to the beginning of Avantis last year in June. raised a seed round from Pantera, Founders Fund, Galaxy, and Base itself. And then we started building a cross-asset leverage-focused perpetuals DEX, targeting all kinds of assets. So like Forex, commodities, indices, crypto with leverage, fully on-chain. So that's a bit about, it's a long-winded background, but that's my story.
That's awesome. Yeah, we got some similarities there. My background is also in M&A, mergers and acquisitions.
I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah. That's really funny. Didn't know that about you. And yeah, that's interesting. So you got started at Illuvium. What was that like? And also, do you still believe in kind of like merging crypto and games? There's a lot of things going on around Web3 gaming. You kind of alluded to, play to earn. I think it's really hard to get the balance right there. Do you not believe in it anymore? Or do you think there's a path forward?
I think I believe in like using crypto for provenance and ownership of digital assets. For example, if you're buying something in Fortnite, I mean, ideally you can own it. That's awesome. But I don't believe in the aspect of creating a non-circular economy where you require new people to come in to keep the flywheel going. I think circular economies are what makes good games great and make good games last 10, 20 years, right? Good franchises. I still believe that's the true model. I think crypto is important for the provenance and ownership aspect and the transparency of how these assets are transferred, but not necessarily that. No, I definitely don't believe in play to earn. I'll tell you that much, right? I do believe in provenance and ownership and NFTs as an important way to create digital economies within games. I mean, the top gaming publishers also believe that. They just don't believe it needs to be done on a blockchain, and I don't blame them.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of ambivalent sort of perception of crypto in the space. It's discussed a lot. But yeah, I mean, okay. The part with digital ownership where you own your own assets and you can move them around, that part you still believe in, but the part where you're actually earning fungible tokens for like doing things, that one not so much, eh?
Yeah, exactly. If you're printing money out of thin air, you're like a central bank, right? And then most central banks fuck up. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, why wouldn't your game of bunnies hopping around do better at the central bank thing than the actual central bank?
Yeah.
Interesting. And did you mention, I'm not sure if I got this right, because I thought I had seen this. Did you work at Pantera yourself, or did you raise from them?
Well, both. So I was there on the team as an investor,
Right.
so investing in DeFi, NFT, gaming infrastructure. And then last year I raised from them, from my company, which is Avantis.
Right. Well, and what was it like? How did like getting in there as well? I would assume obviously they're a well-known fund. Was it hard? Was it a hard process to get hired there? Were you looking to get to Pantera, or did they contact you? What was that like?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. That's an open question in my mind because I applied and then the very next day they reached out on LinkedIn, which is super weird because it's like if you apply, they reach out on email generally, right? So did they see my application or did they just know that we have to reach out to some candidates now? I should have clarified that in my 1.5 year there, but I didn't.
And what was it like? What was your time there like? Did you enjoy it? Was it taxing? What were you working on mostly?
Yep. No. Venture capital is the best job you can get in the world, right? Like if I was ever to go back to work working for someone else, like it would be in a VC because your job is to like just do thorough research, talk to founders, and build theses on the space, right? And like meet really cool people and fly around the world. At least in crypto, there are a lot of conferences. Maybe not in the regular software world, right? But really incredible job. And the main thing is everyone on the team is smarter than me, right? So as I played catch up to them, I grew as a person. So I think for those reasons, it was a very phenomenal experience. I think the reason why I left is, very simple, that I just wanted to dive even deeper into the risk curve and like in the learning curve. And being a founder it definitely helps.
Right. If you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room, right? I mean,
yes.
Yeah, I completely agree. And do they usually look at, because I think it's not necessarily easy to get into VCs. Do they usually look at, if you have an investment banking background, or is that not a must? Does it look a bit different in the crypto industry specifically for VCs? Can you speak on that a bit?
Yeah. So I think any VC, regardless of which sector you focus on, shares similarities, right? In how they operate. Like there's an investment committee, there's LPs that need to be managed, there's fundraising processes, there's like investment processes. So they do like the fact that you have a traditional background and you can like grind and work hard and you have the ability to learn a lot. And then combined with that, a deep passion for crypto, a space that moves so much, it's the space that leaves you, hanging to dry every couple of years. They want someone who genuinely believes in the products that they're investing in and in the teams that they're backing. So they were looking for someone who has both, right? And at the time, I had obviously the banking experience, a little bit of it at least. And then I was getting more and more crypto native. I was just spending a lot of my time reading like white papers, reading docs, using DeFi products. So they knew that I was raw in blockchain, but they just picked me up because they knew probably that I can learn and pick those things up. Um, and that's sort of their thesis as well, right? Like kind of maybe work with people who are obviously genuinely interested in DeFi and crypto, and that's a baseline. And then they're like smart people outside of that with experience.
Right. Yeah, I'm going a bit off topic here, but it's interesting to me. So let's do another question on that. Namely, you worked in M&A, I worked in M&A. What's your take on how different sort of like early stage investing is, at least in my mind? Like, for example, if you're doing like traditional M&A process of a company getting acquired, you're doing a valuation on it. It's very, very it's a lot of quantitative analysis in terms of like determining the value of this company. You have historic financials, you can like extrapolate them into the future. You can kind of find a sustainable earnings level which you can project out into the future and all that. So there's a lot of like tangible things you can work with in terms of determining what to pay for this investment. But if you're like working in the VC space, especially with all these like new business models, this new technology, right? Teams that are just getting started. I mean, most teams in general, most projects in general in crypto are not necessarily making profits, right? So that is a whole topic by itself. But then you're investing in the ones that are just getting started to launch a protocol. Like how was Pantera, and how were you, firstly, how do you think about this topic in general? And how did Pantera and how did you guys go about evaluating like the price that you're willing to pay for this? Or, like it's not just the decision of do I invest or do I not invest? It's also like how much do I invest and what do I want to get in return for it?
Yep.
What do you think?
Yep. So very good question, right? And for people who are watching, right, you need to understand that every VC has a mandate to deploy capital, right? So if I raise $1 billion as a VC, I can't just take a management fee on it if I don't deploy that capital. So I have to. I'll start by saying that there's a pressure to deploy money in some amount of time, right? The sooner you deploy that money, the sooner you raise a new fund, right? So there's that incentive as well. So keep that in mind as I go into the deeper aspects of this question. So now the question delves into how do you determine fair price, right? There's two levers you have to pull. One is what you believe is the fair price, which varies by vertical. So small example, in a lending protocol, you'd probably look at TVL to market cap ratios. So, or like the fully diluted valuation of a company divided by the total value locked in the protocol, and compare that across different protocols and then say, oh, this product is live, they're raising some money. I should value them at X because they have this much in traction in TVL. Similarly, for a perpetuals protocol like ours, right, we're building a leverage trading exchange. How much volumes have we done? How much revenues have we done? How many users do we have? That's an important metric. But as you head out of DeFi into infrastructure, that becomes hazy, right? The intrinsic valuation lens becomes very hazy. Then you start getting into metrics like how valuable is my block space as an L1, L2? How many developers want to build on my platform? How many developers are building on my platform? What's the TVL of the platform? So at that point, intrinsic valuation exists a little bit, but it starts to get guided by the number two and the most important factor, which is how much are other VCs willing to pay, right? Willingness to pay is what determines the ultimate payment at the end of the day, right? You can say whatever you want to about how you value something. There's been often at Pantera, and even when I was angel investing, I don't do that actively anymore. But um, we would say at IC that there's a certain price we're willing to pay for a company, and then we just realize that five other VCs are paying 50% higher, and then we'd have a underwriting exercise of how do we underwrite this deal. We were calling it a 10x. Is it a 10x? Now it's a 5x because you're paying 50% more, right?
Yeah,
Or
right, right.
7.5x. So broadly, the answer to the question is it depends, but it's mostly guided by two things. Um, what is the intrinsic value according to you, and then what your competitors are willing to pay for it. And then on top of that, there's a macro lens of like, do you need to deploy this capital somewhere, right?
Right.
Because there'll always be a deal that you don't like, but if you keep waiting, you're just getting out invested by the market, right? So that's why you see a lot of cyclical deployments in crypto. When markets are hot, public valuations first run up, and then there's a
Yeah.
sign that private valuations will catch up. So in that delta, VCs come in and they're like, okay, I know that Bitcoin's gone up to 70K. I know that private companies will follow the same trend. They'll expect more. Let me get in early before these guys start expecting way more, right? And when there's a
Right.
bust, right, same thing, public markets bust, privates follow, the deployment pace stops. There's always a lag of a quarter or so, three
Yeah,
months.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I know a lot of rambling, but those are the levers.
Right, right. So yeah, because sometimes it doesn't seem too sane, the valuations and the, like you said, the upbidding of things, right? But okay, that's interesting to hear. So it is a bit more hazy. It is also a bit more like experience with the verticals and looking at some metrics. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of like a challenging environment. Well, let's dive into base anyway. How did you end up there? How did you end up building there? And yeah, what is that ecosystem like to you?
Yeah. So for us, it was very simple. We were looking at the landscape last year, and funnily enough, we were deciding between Solana and then any Ethereum L2, like Optimism and Arbitrum, right? So those are the three choices for us: Optimism, Solana, and then Arbitrum. And all three really good choices. In retrospect, Solana being the best by a mile, right? Just like the run up this year has been crazy. But I think at that time we saw Coinbase announce that they're building an L2 called Base, right? And immediately in my head, I was like, I want to build here, right? If one L2 can solve for distribution and bringing genuine
Right.
retail flow on chain, it's Base. At the end of the day, the technology itself is getting more and more uh, commoditized, so to say, right? Every L2 building on the same stack is using the same technology, the same index. So like sort of the same fault proofs and all that stuff, the same bridges. So what does it come down to? It comes down to how well the L2 can do business development and how much trust can that L2 garner, right? And so for us, the question was, okay, we know Base won't have a token. We know it won't be like the other chains where you build something and you get incentives and then your users are just flocking to your platform because there's incentives.
Yeah.
But we said no problem. We'll build Avantis without incentives, right? Whatever incentives exist will be our own, and we'll just rely on Base to like grow the on-chain economy by like 100x, right? And the 5x has happened this year. There's a 95x left to go in the coming years, but I do think that it can happen. And that was sort of our high-level reasoning for why we chose Base.
You're such a investment banker, man. That's nice. But I agree. I mean, distribution is key, and that is a fair mental model there for the choice. Uh,
Yeah.
you you mentioned the incentives, but I didn't actually think of that in terms of base. So there's no kind of like incentives paid out from a token because there is no token. But isn't there another mechanism? I mean, Coinbase is well financed, right? How much are they involved there and kind of uh, investing into the ecosystem?
Yeah, so to be clear, we got an investment from the Base Ecosystem Fund. We were one of the first protocols that actually got that investment um, in our seed round. So they do invest in some protocols, right? Definitely. Especially in the beginning, they were trying to bootstrap the ecosystem with like strong teams. But I think when I say incentives, I mean like kind of like how Arbitrum gives out $50 million every like 6 months to teams, right?
Yeah.
Pro rata based on your traction. Like we don't have any like tangible USDC or token incentives to give out to our community. We can't use the fundraise money to just like shill out incentives all the time because that's not
Right.
sustainable. we'll just burn money and like die, right? As a team, we don't want to do that. Um, but oftentimes ecosystems supercharge teams and attract users via incentives, which are like really important in crypto. Whatever people say doesn't matter. Incentives matter a lot. Incentives are pretty much all there is in crypto, right? So that's what I mean when I say base does not engage in that. But I am saying that in a positive way because it's a level playing field, right? And they don't engage in incentives with anyone. So we're not the only ones that are playing this game with, and they're credibly neutral, which is what I like.
Right. But how do you compete then with those other ones, right? Which are inflating sort of their usage with all these incentives that are paid out.
Yeah. Yeah, look, it forces you to think about building something that people genuinely want to use if you remove the incentives one day, right?
Right.
And that's very hard to understand and quantify, but as a team that's venture backed and as a DeFi native, it would be a shame if I can't build something that people want to genuinely use if the incentives didn't exist. So
Yep.
long term, yes, you can play the game, you can like inflate incentives, you can like inflate valuations. Short term, I mean, long term, things settle down to fundamentals, at least in DeFi, right? So that's sort of the answer to the question, right? Like we can't compete without those incentives, but it forces us to think about building truly novel and solid products where like we can just retain users based on the product itself, hopefully.
Right, that's fair. And what makes Base special in a way? I mean, obviously it's that Coinbase is behind it, and but I feel like there's more going on. There was a lot of buzz about it, and there's some user experience things that are being worked on there. I believe Jesse keeps posting. I'm not sure what his position is, to be honest, but I think some tech lead type thing, right? And he
Yeah,
keeps
the number
posting
one
like user.
contributor on Base. Yeah.
Right, right, right. And he keeps sharing kind of like new products in terms of user experience improvements. I think like the smart wallet logins with passkeys and things like that. So, just a question to you: what in your mind makes this ecosystem special to you guys?
Yeah, I think it's to me. Look, I'll give you the non-sales pitch, right? Like the pitch that to me makes the
Right.
most sense, which is that I think trust is very important for any user, right? When they think about blockchain and crypto, they think scams, they think like oh this is a adversarial project, right? Um, but at least in crypto itself, Coinbase is a trusted brand, right? And the fact that they are launching an L2 where a lot of the trading volumes are going to cannibalize their own business tells you how serious they are about
Mm,
genuinely trying to bring the user base on chain, right? Like if you look at Aerodrome, which is a spot DEX on Base, it's the largest DEX on Base, I should say, for trading all kinds of assets, Ethereum, USDC, meme coins. Again, spot, not perp. We are perp. They are spot. I would never trade on Coinbase again because I know Aerodrome exists, right? For any like base native tokens. The fees are low, it's decentralized. The fees are way lower than Coinbase. So what I'm trying to say is that Coinbase knows what they're doing. They're a team that has put a lot of thought into it, right? Most L2 teams are just L2 teams. These guys are regular these guys have regulatory backing. They're the first. They have an exchange business, which is the biggest business in crypto, arguably, and they're cannibalizing that now, right? Why are they doing that? Do they know something we don't? Like probably, right? So that's what I'm kind of relying on. And the second thing is, as a builder, of course, everyone wants to see incentives and growth and crazy hype. Like Solana is the perfect example of that. And on DeFi and Ethereum, that was Arbitrum. But would I rather have if I'm building for the next 5 years stability or volatile growth? I would
mm.
choose stability, which is why I chose base. Because I said these guys are not going anywhere. They will be building. I don't know what the traction will end up being like 3 years from now, and whether they'll succeed in their vision. But I know that given there's no token, given there's a lot of slow and careful, slow moving decisions, that it'll be a stable chain to build on, which thus far has come true.
Mm. And how do you view those other chains? There's other exchanges that have created chains, right? I mean, the Binance Smart Chain. I think there's other ones. I think KuCoin and Huobi or something. They have chains. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
What's your view on those?
It's a natural next step, right? Like every exchange wants to create like a holistic ecosystem. Hey, this is centralized, come to our decentralized counterpart, right? Coinbase with Base, OKX with OKXL2, Binance with BNB chain. Uh, it's not a winner takes all market. I'll tell you that much, right? Because people are very in crypto, they're very tribalistic. There's a tribal mentality, like, oh, I like Binance, I'll only stick to Binance Smart Chain, or like I like Coinbase, hence I'm bullish on Base and the projects building on Base. It really depends on your ecosystem, right? And how harmoniously you can connect the two without like, you know, necessarily cannibalizing one or the other. So there is competition, but I think every exchange ideally wants to be a full stack exchange, a centralized and a decentralized exchange. And you're seeing that play out with, well, you've already seen that play out with Binance. You're seeing that play out with Coinbase now.
What would you say, that there's also a lot of skepticism around that, right? I mean, you mentioned it yourself. They're kind of cannibalizing their own business. Of course, that is not uncommon for businesses to have to do that eventually because the market changes. And if you want to stay relevant, you got to do that probably sooner than later. But there's skepticism around, okay, these are centralized players, centralized exchanges. They also might not be as interested, or might not be that much in their interest to create this in a very decentralized fashion, have it completely trustless. And where's Base at in their roadmap in terms of that? I know a lot of the L2s are actually not really decentralized. They have a centralized sequencer and things like that. There's also these things around stable coins, which they can freeze your balance or something like that, just in that vein. How do you view Coinbase or a Base, and are they moving into a more decentralized direction if they're not yet?
Yeah, it's an amazing question. You should definitely research a bit more after this call on something called stage 2 decentralization, right? So every L2 wants to progressively decentralize their sequencer, where the transactions are, bundled and executed and ordered. Right now, all these sequences are centralized. Stage 2 allows for the sequencer to be decentralized, right? And so Base is building in collaboration with Optimism, if you know, right? Pretty much there's a concept called the super chain, where any chain that's using the OP stack is just the underlying technology that Optimism's built on. Any chain using the OP stack is called a part of the super chain, right? The super chain is like a network of L2s using the same stack, so they can seamlessly interoperate and communicate with each other, right? Now, this network is getting into progressive decentralization with stage 2. After stage 2, you can expect that a lot of the Ethereum whales and the DeFi activity on Ethereum might migrate to Base or OP because they'll consider these chains as genuinely decentralized and a chain where they can pull out their money if there's ever a problem, right? So I think it'll take at least 2 years to reach a level where you reach stage 3, and then at that point nobody can say, oh, this is not a decentralized chain. It's genuinely is going to have multiple validators, going to have multiple checks and balances. So it takes time, right? It'll take 2 years. My question back to you is, do users care? I think they don't care at all, right? Like how centralized or decentralized the chain is. It's a nice to have from a ethos, security, trust, and credible neutrality perspective, right? Base can then say, oh, like we're genuinely credibly neutral. Here's a token, decentralized, right? At that point, it's a good framework to have, but users don't care. They just care about low gas fees, good products, and opportunities to make money.
Yeah. Well, my take is that's why I think it is tricky to make that move. I agree. I think users don't care until they have to care, until something goes wrong, because that's the whole thesis of the space. You want to decentralize to have unstoppable infrastructure and no centralized point of failure, all of that. No trust. But when that doesn't happen, and users don't care. So what is the big incentive to decentralize? That's why you can be a bit skeptical around promises of decentralizing, because with it comes probably a lot of like trade-offs that make things actually harder, right? Like it might be, I don't know, slower or less scalable, like it introduces challenges. So that is my take on it, but I hope the projects execute on these roadmaps.
I think they will. I think Base has a lot of incentive to unlock with a token that can only come when they're decentralizing the sequencer.
Right.
And maybe they don't. Maybe they're the only L2 in the world that doesn't have a token. That's also fine, not a problem. But setting a precedent and doing something that's not been done before is in the interest of any company, right?
Yeah.
It sets them apart, and if not financially, then from a mind share perspective.
Yeah. Do you think they will launch a token? I remember there was a debate around that, as in because they're, I don't know, I don't remember, because they're a publicly listed company. They won't just like make that step into that territory. You know, all these with the SEC and all this complexity around our token securities or not and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, not until, so I think they won't, right? For the sake of people using Base and Avantis, I hope they do, right? Of course. But I think it won't happen until they've achieved true decentralization and they're credibly neutral. And even then, I think they'll have to consider, this is just my personal view, by the way, nobody's
Yeah.
informed this view. They'll have to
Yeah.
consider what impact the token has on the value accrual to the Coinbase stock, right? Um, because it's possible that the equity
Yeah,
takes a hit
that's true.
because people stop like ascribing value that Base brings to the equity company. Um,
Right.
that could
Because
be
it could be viewed as a leak of value. Now perhaps token holders receive a certain value,
yes,
versus
yes,
this flowing back up to the equity investors.
yeah. To be fair though, I mean, if you think about Base's contribution to Coinbase's revenues, it's pretty minimal, right? At the
Okay.
moment, at the moment, it might become bigger later. Right now, it's like 40 mil of revenue contributed, and overall revenues from Coinbase were like more than $1 billion. So, obviously, a very small portion of Coinbase, and it's a shrinking portion. Why is it a shrinking portion?
Mm.
Because gas fees are trending down, right? That's one of the KPI. The KPI is gas should trend to zero. Of course, right? No, no, who doesn't want gas to trend to zero? That's awesome
Yeah.
outcome for the space. But what that means is Basis Sequencer is also getting less revenue, right? So Coinbase as an equity company is getting less revenue from Base. So imagine decentralizing Base. Now, like in that scenario, right? You unlock a $10 billion FTV or $20 billion FTV token, right? A token that's worth what Solana is worth, for example. Then you're talking. Because Coinbase, the equity is worth like whatever, 30, 40 bill. I haven't checked last. This is just me. Directionally, I'm
Yeah.
correct, but I haven't checked the exact numbers. Base is worth that much. Now you're talking. Because now the Coinbase equity holders can get an airdrop of Base. The whole network is more energized, and you can just, and it's also decentralized. It's actually decentralized, right? So I can see it, but it'll take years, man, years. Like, and I don't think they'll want to launch token before they've genuinely like captured a very large market, and that market is not here right now. I can tell you, it's still the same DeFi natives floating from chain to chain. The new retail flow hasn't yet arrived.
That would be crazy. Can you imagine equity investors, holders of stock receiving an airdrop? That would be hilarious.
That would be unprecedented, which is why I think it.
Yeah.
This is just my hopium. This is like my ultra
Yeah.
bull case, like where my soul leaves my body, right? Like it won't really happen though. I think.
Your soul will also go to the equity investors. They receive it all.
I know. Yeah, they'll receive it all
Yeah.
for sure.
Hilarious. Right. In terms of, let's say someone's listening and they have not interacted with Base, right, or with the applications built there. What would you say would be the way to start? Like, where could they start?
So before answering that question, so hey, we never talked
Yeah.
about who your audience is. Who are these people?
Yeah.
Are they pretty early in their journey in DeFi? Are they crypto natives? What's happening?
It's mixed, so it's a tricky question. Of course, you got, I'd say, crypto native users who are already on chain, but and developers, but so of course also people who are more interested in the topic. They might hold crypto on Robinhood or something. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Um, so yeah, I guess in whatever way you would like to respond to that question.
Got it. So I'll respond by saying that if you're already trading or if you're already on chain in any of the Ethereum L2s, then there's multiple bridges that exist that can get you to Base. Um, if you actually visit our website, we can get you to Base very easily as well. So again, if you visit avantisfi.com, you can see that under the More tab, you have a bridge and swap tab. So you can easily go there, bridge over any of your existing on-chain assets onto Base, right? And this is, by the way, powered by Socket. So this bridge is powered by Socket. So you can actually go to Socket independently or within our app. The second thing is, if you're a Coinbase user, it's very easy because you can simply use Coinbase Pay, right? So Coinbase Pay is an application where if you have a Coinbase account, you can simply use the Coinbase account balance that you have to on-ramp into DeFi, right, directly. So as soon as you verify your info, which can be done via passkey, I won't do that right now, but you can just like do your Face ID, verify info, Coinbase account straight to your Coinbase Base wallet, right? And then you can interact with Avantis or any of the apps on Base. So onboarding is pretty simple if you're a DeFi native, and if you're not, then you can simply send money from an exchange account, whether that's Binance, OKX, Coinbase, onto the Base network, or you can use any of the bridges to get you to Base.
Right. Okay. Before we just talk about Avantis, like more broadly, what do you think? Like, what could they do on Base, right? Like, what would be interesting to do there?
Yeah. So it really depends, right? What type of a user are you? Are you trying to just park your capital, get some yields on it, get yields on your USDC? You're a stablecoin user who's looking for yields that are more than the US Treasury yields, right? Say, and some airdrops. Then there's a lot of protocols that have incentive campaigns, good returns, strong like capital utilization, where you can just park your capital and chill, right? And you can see that capital grow. If you're a trader, for example, you're looking for an edge. There's two types of traders. One's like spot traders, one's perp traders. Spot traders just buy an asset like Ethereum. They'll hold it for like, months or years, and then they'll make some return on it. You can do that for Ethereum. You can do that for Base native memes. There's a lot of memes on Base that have taken off, right? You can track them on CoinGecko. There's a category for Base memes. You can just look at which memes are like rising, falling. If you're a meme trader, if you're into that stuff. Yeah. And the third type of trader is obviously the perp traders, right? Who are like pretty much taking a view on an asset with leverage. So they don't have the capital needed to have, say, like a $10,000 position size. They only have like $1,000. They can take a 10x leverage trade on Ethereum, and then there's some catalyst coming that will increase the price of Ethereum, and then you make money based on that, right? So obviously for perps, we are there. So really, it really depends. Like, what type of user are you? First, try to understand that. Are you like just someone who's like dipping that toe in the waters, and then you just want something passive? You can put your USDC to good use with staking on like Moonwell, Aerodrome, on Avantis, all of these Base native projects. If you're trying to trade spot assets, then you can use Aerodrome or any like aggregators like Matcha. If you're trying to trade Perps, you can use us. So it really depends. That answer is a very nuanced answer.
Yeah, fair enough. And in terms of usage, kind of like in metrics, if you'd compare it to other layer twos, how is Base doing there? And are there already some apps that are reaching levels which are comparable to, other big protocols on other chains?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, if you look at Base, Aerodrome, I believe, surpassed Uniswap in the volumes of the ETH USDC pool. So the ETH USDC pool is the most liquid pool in all of DeFi, right? Because Ethereum is the most liquid asset in all of ETH DeFi. That pool has more volumes now on Aerodrome than it does on Uniswap. I think that goes to show how big the Base economy has become from a native spot trader perspective, right? So that's just one example of a protocol that's doing well. On our side, given we offer like Forex and metals and not just crypto assets, we've actually become the largest perp DEX for real world assets, even though we're like sitting on Base, right? So when I say largest, I mean by open interest, by the open interest of all positions that are actually open on these pairs. So we still have a long way to go in terms of trading volumes and competing with like other crypto DEXs. But on the real world asset side, we've gotten to be number one now, which is pretty cool. So definitely a lot of native projects that don't have tokens that are like doing pretty well, that offer like all kinds of functionality, staking, lending, borrowing, swapping, perpetuals that you can check out.
Right, cool. And what is Avantis focusing on then? You're doing perpetuals trading, and you also have obviously apparently real world assets. Can you tell us more about what you guys do and also what types of assets people could trade?
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty simple, right? And the best way to
Yeah.
explain is like just by showing you. But pretty much what Avantis is a trading platform where people can buy and sell, so long and short, different kinds of assets with leverage, right? So for people listening that don't know what leverage is a very common tool in finance. It's a very common tool in DeFi that allows you to amplify your returns, and it also increases the risk of losses, right? So on the one hand, you're borrowing money to trade something, so you can make more because you're getting the gains on money you borrowed that you didn't own. On the other hand, if you lose money, you can lose more because you are obviously borrowing money and then losing that money, right, to the market movements. So what we do is we give users a way to long short Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, different crypto assets. Like, you can look at AI, DeFi, the Bitcoin ecosystem, memes, right? There's all kinds of assets there, GameFi. But in addition to that, we also offer a way for users to long short Forex and commodities. So if you're bullish that, if you feel, for example, the recession is coming and gold is a safe haven, you can see that people are trading gold on the platform, right? You can see the open interest rising on the platform. But if you believe that you're just a crypto user who wants to swing trade a crypto asset, you can trade Ethereum. And again, the leverage here is crazy. So if you take, for example, $85 of your own money, you can lever up and get a position size exposure of 4,000 USDC, right? Now,
Right.
this comes with risks. To be very clear, you have to know what you're doing, and most of our traders don't end up using 50x leverage, right? They end up using like
Yeah.
3 to 15x, something in that range.
Yeah.
Only the most degens use 50x. So if you're a degen, try it out. But I no financial advice there, right? For sure. But most of our volumes comes from Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, right? The majors where there's a lot of liquidity and there's a lot of interest. But as you can see here, there's a lot of assets that we offer that don't exist anywhere else. For example, USD JPY, USD CAD. People trading these assets are simply expressing a view that they are bullish on the US dollar as compared to the yen, or they're bullish on the US dollar as compared to the Canadian dollar. So we offer cross-asset leverage, which allows a trader to express their views across both macro and micro narratives, right? So on CT, people are getting tired of trading memes, man. Let's be honest. People are getting super tired of like pump.fun, rugs, memes. It's like pretty PvP, as they call it, like player versus player.
Yeah.
But we're trying to expand that mentality by like including assets that don't necessarily correlate to just micro CT sentiment, right? They're assets that are driven in the trillions of dollars in the TradFi markets by real world catalysts like interest rates, geopolitical events, macro events. So that makes our trading side very special. I think as a trader, what you need to know is two things. One is that if you're trading on Avantis, we have an incentives program where we're circling back all of our revenues that we get from trading back to traders, right? So you guys help generate revenues, we're giving it back to you, right? Over like the next 4 weeks. This has been going on for 16 weeks now. So based on your volume, you can get like USDC rewards back. Most of our traders make back 50-60% of their fees, which is pretty cool. If you place in the top 5 on our weekly leaderboards in volume or PNL, you can get a very sick Avantis hoodie that you can't buy with money. I'll tell you that much. It's only going to our top traders. And then you get a very exclusive role in our Discord if you place in the top 5 on a weekly
Sehaj,
leaderboard.
I want to be a chat trader.
Do it, man. Go for it. Show us what you've got. Go for it.
I want the badge, but I don't want to earn it. I just want to get it.
Oh, no inside knowledge, no inside preferences here. Just straight up trading competition, right? So go for it, man.
Right.
And so let's say you're someone who does not want to trade. Let's say you're someone who just wants to farm, right? Like just wants to farm XP points. Like you just want to pretty much like power these trades, right? Avantis has developed a fully on-chain AMM, right? So AMM, again, for people who don't know what that is, it stands for a automated market maker, right? And apologies, I'm on VPN, so the website's a bit slow. But an automated market maker pretty much gives you the ability to park your stable coins in the protocol and then power trades and get yields for it, right? So of course, if you're like, parking money in the protocol, you can get like yields. You can also pretty much like lock your money in the protocol for boosted yields. So you can see that about 500,000 has already gone to our LPs, right?
All right, that's awesome. Okay, you can become a chat trader on Base as well. That's good to know.
Yes.
That's a good selling point. No, that's cool stuff. Well, all the best to you guys. What's next, perhaps, for based on Avantis, and how can people get involved if they want to?
Yeah, look, we're just focusing on product, right? We're continuously churning out new features. If you're a trader or a LP, please reach out in our Discord, on our Twitter. We're happy to onboard you and explain more about what we're building. I think what's next for Base is obviously decentralization, and then also a clear path to reducing gas fees so that people can transact more and pay less. So pretty excited for both of those developments.
Gotcha. All right, Sehaj, it's been a pleasure. Anytime again. Thanks for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. Cheers.